I just believe this, because I've been a Christian for over 20 years, and I've gone through lots of seasons. Maybe you have emotional seasons, and just circumstantial seasons, and just life seasons. How did you come in today to church? Like, where's your faith at? You don't need to raise your hand and tell me, but I just want you to start thinking about that. Because sometimes when I've come into church throughout the 20 plus years that I've been a Christian, sometimes I'm kind of like a blah Christian. Right? You ever been there? You kind of got the Christian blahs. Just kind of going through the motions. And yeah, you're coming, but it's like you're having a hard time finding any type of motivation for anything really that has to do with your faith. Maybe you just you're not concentrating on your faith, you're concentrating on everything else in your life you're excited about, but just not your faith really right now. Blahs. Right? Or maybe you're discouraged. Right? Maybe maybe you've just gone through some disappointment, things that you made some big commitments and then you've fallen away. Maybe the enemy's got you he's got you just lying to you and telling you how horrible you are, and you're beat up. Or maybe you're burnt out. You've been working hard, right? You're just kind of a burnt out Christian. But where are you at with your Christian faith? And since this is kind of like a halftime, I want to put it in kind of like a sports analogy. Imagine you went out to the first half of the game and you got beat up. Right? It was hard. But the game's on the line. It's something you've been working for. And so you go into halftime, right? And then your coach comes in and he gives you what? It's a good coach. He gives you a motivational speech. Sometimes you need a motivational speech so that you can get out there for the next half, so that how you came into halftime is not the way that you go out to back into the game. Right? You need a motivational speech. You guys like motivational speeches? Right? Like if you're from my generation and that song from Eminem comes on, you've only got one shot. You can't help it. But your blood. I mean, I know that we're not supposed to say that if you're a pastor or even just a Christian, but I can't lie. When it comes on the radio, I feel like I want to do something right now. I only got one shot. I got to make the most of this, right? Or I don't care how played out it is. You watch Braveheart, and he's like, "You can take my life, you'll never take my freedom." You just want to go die for something. I want to paint my face blue and die for a cause, right? Because that just gets me motivated. I'm not going to give you a motivational speech today. But we're going to look at one that Jesus gave to his disciples a long time ago that I think has to do with being all in, and I think is just timely for us as a church. And no matter how you came in, this is designed that you don't leave the way that you came in. If you came to church today, God had a reason for it. Or if you're listening to this, you're one of the 4 people that subscribe to our podcast, God has a reason for that. So turn to Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 16. I want to look at probably the greatest motivational speech that was ever spoken. Now Jesus is in Matthew 16. He just came from an area called Bethsaida, right by the Sea of Galilee, and he takes his disciples on a little road trip. And you got to understand this about the disciples. Who are the disciples? Right? It's 12 guys, 12 young men. Peter's probably the oldest, and he's probably about 20 years old. But the oldest in your group is 20 years old. What are the rest of them? There's teenagers. But this is normal in a Jewish society, right? Well, you would go through a normal training until you're about 13 years old, and then you would figure out what you're going to do with your life then, right? There's no high school and college. They had some other education, but there was just this pinnacle of this is when you figure out the direction of your life at 13 years old, right? You either went in and we're going to do what your dad's always done, you're going to get a trade, or your dad would give you to another apprentice, he would assign you to another apprentice, and then you would go live with them, right? And they would train you up in whatever it was. Or if you were super duper lucky, some rabbi would have come into your town, and he would have noticed some potential in you. He would have said, "You want to follow me, and I'll teach you my way." And everybody would have celebrated that. You would have followed him. And these are just some teenagers around that age point, and their rabbi happens to be Jesus. the luck of the draw, right? Or the providence of God. He picks them. And they're just teenagers. And let's look in verse 24 of chapter 16 in Matthew. It's one of those ones, if you've ever been to a youth camp, you might have used this as the theme. It's a neat theme. When you first think of it, it's motivational. When you really think of it, it's crazy. Like serious crazy, what he actually says. He says, starting in verse 24, he goes, then Jesus told his disciples, we just realized like a 20-year-old, some teenagers, right? He told his youth group, Jesus told his disciples, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Now, just so that you realize this, like you couldn't go to Tilly's at this point and buy a cross necklace. That wouldn't have happened in their day, right? No one was going to have a tattoo of a cross. Crosses were not cool at this point. Pick up your cross, man. You're gonna have a crucifixion was like capital punishment, shame. You did not want. It would be like pick up your electric chair, your lethal injection. Pick that up and follow me. It would have been shocking. And Jesus told his disciples, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Is Jesus giving him a wimpy, like let's just go out there and do our best. This is AYSO. You're going to get a trophy anyways. And we'll eat some oranges. Everyone get enough oranges? Okay, cool. Let's get back out there and look good while you're playing so your mom can get good pictures for Facebook. No. He's like, look, this is a big deal. I don't want any half-heartedness in here, right? We're going to get out there. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to suffer, man. You're going to have to dig deep. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. And it sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy as it sounds. But you have to understand what happened before that. And understand the context, to really understand what he is saying, and that it actually is motivational. So let's go back a little bit further and look at what builds up to this. So Matthew chapter 16, verse 13 through 19, we'll look at how this day begins. We're at the end of the day. He goes, pick up your cross, follow me. Let's go back to the beginning of the day. It says, now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, well, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. He says a lot there. If you read on in the text, you see the next thing that he does is he begins to explain to them, he says, what his mission is. That he, Jesus, is headed to the cross. That he's going to die. And on the third day, he's going to rise again. Peter, the 20-year-old, the oldest of the youth group, steps in and says, no, Jesus. We're not going to let that happen to you. What does Jesus say to him? What did he just say before? He just pumped him up, like, you're the rock, man. like Rocky music gonna play whenever you come in, right? Like you the man. God just gave you insight, revelation that you don't even know where that came from. And I'm going to do some big things. I'm going to build my church on what you just said. I'm going to build my church on. I'm giving you the keys. You ever remember the moment when someone gave you a big responsibility? You know, like maybe you never were able to drive. You had your driver's license. I don't know. And your dad's like, here, go drive the Porsche. That's a big deal, right? Hey, we're gonna go for the first time. We're gonna go out to dinner, and we're not getting a babysitter. Here, you got the keys. You're in charge. This is a big moment. That's just a house or a Porsche. What about the kingdom of God? And then he gets all the way to this moment where he's gonna go, Peter, get behind me, Satan, because your head's messed up. You're not thinking the way that I'm trying to help you think. You're thinking all earthly and stuff, right? You got to think like, I'm trying to talk about heavenly things. And then after that, he goes, no, if you want to follow me, not only am I going to the cross, not only is that my mission, but you're going to need to pick up your cross. My mission. You're going to follow me. In your notes, 3 observations we see right away in this text before we even learn about some of the deep richness of the context of this situation. But just from everybody reading it, the first thing I see is this. The observation letter A is this. He asks them, he takes them to this crisis, really this crisis of belief, and he goes, first off, do you believe that I'm Jesus? Do you believe in Jesus? Or better yet, what do you believe about Jesus? Who's Jesus in your life? And what do they say? They say, the other people are saying you're a great guy, right? Maybe you're a prophet, you're a big deal. Now, who do you say that I am, he says. You're the answer. You're the answer. When he says you're the Christ, you can almost translate it like this. You're the answer. You're what we need. You're it. We've been crying out. We need a Savior. We need a new kingdom. We need to be revived, restored, back to the way things used to be. You're it. Who do you think Jesus is? Who is Jesus in your life? And the next thing, do you believe in Jesus? The next thing you see is, he brings them to this crisis of belief. Do you believe in Jesus' mission? Do you believe in the mission that Jesus gave him? He said, I'm going to build my church and advance my kingdom. That's my mission. The way that I'm going to do that, I'm going to go to the cross. The way that you're going to do it is you're going to have to get your own cross. And you're going to follow me. It's about a mission that Jesus had. It's why Jesus came. It's why he calls us to follow him. Will you give your life? Letter C. Will you give your life for Jesus and his mission? That's the progression. That's a crisis of faith. Will you give your life for Jesus? That's what he says. If you want to follow me, it's all in commitment. Will you deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me? In short, he's saying, are you all in? Powerful motivational speech. It gets even more powerful when you start to put color to this black and white situation. Let's look at some of the things that are in this text. They're clues to unlock some of the richness of this text. You go back to verse 13, it says what? It goes, now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi. Now, you're like, what? That guy over there can't even pronounce it right. Like, how's that a big deal, right? This is a big deal. If you were the parents of this youth group following Jesus, and like we're going to go on our youth camp in a couple of weeks with our youth group, and if I was to send out a little email and go, hey, I know that we told you we're going to San Diego, but change of plans. We're going to Caesarea Philippi. Oh, no, you aren't! This was a gnarly place. Let's look at a couple pictures. I said that Jesus came from Bethsaida. That's like right over here, my laser pointer. That's Bethsaida. That's the Sea of Galilee. Right? What we're saying is that Jesus took his disciples all the way to right here, Caesarea Philippi. Notice some things. It's about a 17-mile walk. I'm a little faster than Jesus. Just took me like that. It's about a 17-mile walk. But notice something about this journey. It's not on the way to anywhere, is it? It's not on the way to anywhere. In fact, this is the only recorded time that Jesus ever went to this region. It records it in Mark 8, and here in Matthew 16, the same situation. Jesus recordedly only goes there one time. And he's not on the way. A lot of times he's going through some place. I was walking through to Jerusalem, and I went through, right, this place, and this happened. He went there intentionally. Jesus intentionally took his 12 disciples to this region. Okay, next slide. This is a picture of right underneath here would have been a huge shrine field in Caesarea Philippi. It's on the foothills of Mount Hermon. If you guys read through the Bible, you'll see that region. Mount Hermon gets talked about a lot in the Bible. It's a very biblical place, but not a very healthy biblical place, right? Oftentimes, where the Mount Hermon is associated with Baal, right? The god. Some people say Baal, B-A-A-L. Baal. Right? It was a fertility god that came from the descendants of Canaan, the Canaanites, way back when, and they were always fighting with the Israelites, right? The Canaanites and the Israelites, and the Israelites were always falling away from God, and where were they going? Like in the book of Judges. They were having Baal, right? And Asherah poles, right? And that was their vice. It was a false god. This region was known for that. If you look real close, you'll see a bunch of like window-looking things. Those are shrines to specific gods. This wall is called the Rock of the Gods. That's what they call this. Jews would have known that. Everybody around would have known that. The Rock of the Gods. Some of these were to like Baal. Some of them were to some of the Caesars, right? It was like a tribute and all these shrines. And so this big area right here, there was actually a spring of water that would come out of that little hole right there, right? In their time, they believed that the gods, wherever water would come out of a mountain, the pagan belief was that that was the gateway to the gods to go to the underworld. That area right there had a nickname that everyone would have known. You guys know what it is? That's called the gates of hell. That hole right there, you can go and see it to this day, is called the gates of Hades. On the Rock of the Gods. With all of these pagan things. When Alexander the Great started taking over the known world, what did he do? He Hellenized everything, right? He tried to bring Greek culture to everything. So all of these people in this region would worship Baal in this spot, and it was a time of fertility. So at springtime, you would go and you would pray for rain, because rain would fertilize, right? There was fertility, had to do with harvest. You wanted a harvest, that's how you made a living. Or you wanted to become a big army. You're not going to recruit people from other places in that day. You're going to have lots of babies. They would pray for lots of babies, fertility. They would pray to Baal in this area, and there would be shrine prostitutes in this area because it was a big sexual thing. And then when Alexander the Great came, it was still this area of fertility, but they wanted to Hellenize it and make it more Greek. So who's the Greek mythological equivalent of Baal? It's Pan. Pan. Not Peter Pan. Pan is a Greek mythological god. He was half goat and half human. And this region, when Jesus was walking the earth, this was all about Pan. This region, you would have went into the 7-Eleven and the little trinket stores along the road. People would have sold you trinkets to Pan, this half goat and half man. And people would come to celebrate with these these temple prostitutes at these shrines, the shrine prostitutes. They also had a huge farm of goats, since Pan was half goat and half man. There was huge farms of goats. They believed that the goats were holy, and it was gnarly. Now is when it gets gnarly. So, in this region, they believed that Pan, at this time when Jesus would come out of that hole right there, the gates of Hades. And he would come and bring a blessing of fertility. So the people would want to rile up Pan, right? So in this area, upwards to 100,000 people would come at different times during the year and try to usher in Pan through that area. And they would come, and it would be like the equivalent of, if you can imagine, going to Las Vegas during a pornography convention. That's basically what we're dealing with in this spot right here. Okay? People would come, and you can imagine what they were doing. With kids here, I won't tell you, but don't you understand? Out in the public, openly, men with women, men, women with men, women with women, and all of them with goats. Documented. That's where this was going on right here. So you can give me the next slide. This is a picture of Pan. You'll notice that he's half goat on the bottom and kind of human form. And every time you'll see him, he'll always have something to do with sexuality and something to do with a musical instrument. He was very musical, right? During these festivals, they would often play a flute. It was one of his seductive instruments. They would play a flute, and because they believed that Pan, when he played a flute, if you were favorable to him, it would excite you and bless you. If you heard Pan's flute and you were on his side, it would bless you. If you were his enemy, it would strike terror in you. When they would go out to war, they would take a flute before him, and they would play Pan's flute, believing that it would terrorize the enemies. You know what they called it? They were invoking panic. That's where the word panic comes from. If you've ever had a panic attack, it might be because he's playing his flute. Right then, right? Very engulfed in the culture of that area, this area, right? So you can imagine, at this time, Josephus, a great historian, tells us that all Jewish rabbis, good Orthodox Jewish rabbis, said this area is a forbidden place for good Jews to go. Why? Because of all those things that are happening and more. You could go on and describe, this place is just a place that you wouldn't let your kid go to. Why is this important in the context? Because Jesus intentionally takes his 12 disciples, it says, to this place. And in this place, he gives them a motivational speech that was a pinnacle move for Peter, and was supposed to be a pinnacle move for why Jesus really came. He was going to die on a cross. He was going to build his church. And that is how he was going to reach people who needed to be reached. Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in Jesus' mission? Will you give your life for Jesus and his mission? Are you all in? That's the message he wants to convey to them. He brings them to this spot, and I believe he does it for a reason. He wants to really hit home who he really is and why he really came. So let's look at 3 things in your note that I think you can learn about who Jesus is and what his real mission is. The first thing that we learn from this speech that Jesus gives in this amazing place is that Jesus came for the sick. Jesus said that himself, right? He said, I didn't come for the healthy, I came for the sick. Jesus came for the sick. If they had gone to Jerusalem and he had given this speech, it would have meant something completely different, right? They would have had a small missional view. Jesus came for these people, right, the Jews. He came for Jerusalem. He came for Israel. And Jesus takes them out of that context to a place where there's probably no other Jewish people at that time. Not that would admit it. Not that were in good standing. He takes them there. And he says, here, with you guys, I'm going to build my church. Because Jesus came for the sick. Matter of fact, Jesus came for everybody who would respond to the gospel. You guys believe that? Implied in that is this. Everyone needs Jesus. If you're prideful like I can often be, and you go, yeah, Jesus came for the sick. Well, I'm not sick. No. What we're talking about is that everybody needs Jesus. Everybody needs Jesus. And Jesus isn't going to just stay in Jerusalem. He's going to go everywhere. He's going to go to the darkest place that they could imagine to make his point. Everybody needs Jesus, and I've come for everybody. Jesus came for the sick. And everybody needs Jesus. And there's only one way. Jesus takes them to a place where they believed this was a gateway to reach the other world. And Jesus makes his point, right? You see this way? They think that you can get to the underworld, to the gods through this gate? No, I'm the gate. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. James McDonald's a pastor I listen to from time to time, especially guys, if you could get on his email list. Great pastor. He said this week, and I just want to borrow it. He goes like this. He goes, you know what? It's not that amazing to say, because some people will be like, look, there's only one way. Like, you're so, like, you think you're the way is the right way, right? And it sounds very prideful. He goes, it's not so amazing to say that there's one way. You know what's amazing? That there's a way. There's a way for us to get to God. And it's through Jesus. One way is enough. It's all we need. It's the only way. And everyone needs Jesus. The second thing we see is that Jesus goes to the rock of the gods. This is amazing because Jesus draws out Peter, and what does he say? You're God. And he goes, on this rock, I'm going to build my church. At the rock of the gods. It's interesting, too, that when Jesus is walking there, he asks Peter, who do the people say that I am? And all of his answers are incredibly Jewish. Did you notice that? Like maybe John the Baptist, or some other Jewish guy, or this Jewish guy, or maybe this Jewish guy. But you gotta be Jewish, right? It's all Jewish. In the region that he went to, they wouldn't have talked like that. Jesus is taking them out of their comfort zone, expanding their horizon of his mission. I didn't just come for you and your buddies. I came for the world. Jesus has sent us to Lomita as a church. Not just Lomita. I mean, you guys, wherever you live, Jesus has sent us there. Wherever you work, Jesus has sent us there. You know what the nickname of Lomita is? The Friendly City. This city is the Friendly City. That's what it's called. I've lived here 17 years. And we started this church a little over 3 years ago. You know what I've learned about this city? This city is very skeptical about organized religion. Very skeptical about Jesus and people that are associated with Jesus. And they're very disconnected. The Friendly City is skeptical about the most friendly man that's ever lived, and his followers. And they're completely disconnected. I believe that we're here, and that our mission is to engage this community, the Friendly City, with friendship, service, and the gospel. Because that's what Jesus did, right? Jesus came to people, he was a friend of sinners. He didn't come to be served, but to serve. And he came spreading good news, the gospel, to engage our community. But here's the bigger thing. If Jesus takes us to Lomita, and we look at Lomita, and we say all of the problems, or how hard it might be to reach, that's what they were facing. They're at a dark place. that really they would say there's no hope for. Let me ask you this. In your life, can you think of a place that needs Jesus? Maybe it's your neighborhood or your family, or maybe it's your work. Can you think of a place that needs Jesus? Are there places that you've kind of just wrote off? You don't have any more hope for it. You kind of just gave up. I tried. Are there places that you really don't think Jesus is going to invade? Or can invade? How can we reach that spot? Let's go to somewhere easier. More Jesus friendly. I think Jesus is saying, don't do that. Go where I send you, and nothing can stop me. So Jesus goes to the Rock of Ages, and we see that Jesus goes to all people. Here's a question that I refuse to answer as a pastor of a church plant. Who are you trying to target? Everybody asks me that. Who are you trying to target? Maybe it's smart. Maybe in 5 years from now, I'll look back and go, what a fool. We should have targeted someone. But I just believe this. You know who I'm targeting? Our community. Anybody who will listen. Anybody who God gives me influence with. That's who I want to target. Everybody at your work. Everybody in your neighborhood. Anybody that comes into contact with any of us, that's who we're targeting. Because we're just nobodies. Trying to tell everybody about somebody. That's our mission. But Jesus goes to all people. And then the next thing, I think the general principle is this. Jesus is in the business of reaching people. And He's invited us, He's given us the keys, literally, of His business. To reach people. The next thing we see is that it's all about Jesus. He makes a profound thing. He says, on this rock I will build my church. How you interpret that is huge. Right? The Catholic Church, on this rock I will build my church. The Catholic Church traditionally has said that on Peter I will build my church. Right? And they say, well, Peter was the first pope, and then so every pope from that point on, we're building our church on the Pope. That's kind of their theology. It's a horrible hermeneutic if you're studying the Bible, and it really doesn't have any church history context, but for 350 years there was no Pope. And then there was a Pope, right? So it didn't really work out that way. So I don't think that we can really see, but Peter was very important, right? Peter was instrumental, but he was the first of many that would come after. And he's not special like the Pope. He's special like Jesus made him special, like he's a follower. All of us would fall in that category. The next interpretation might be the kind of the traditional evangelical one, is that the authority of the apostles is the rock. In other words, it's the confession that he makes. It's the idea. He said Jesus is the answer. On the truth that Jesus is the answer, that's what we're going to build our church on. This rock, this confession that you made, that I'm the Messiah. And I will expand it for you. I'm going to die. I'm going to rise from the dead. And that's how people are going to get saved. They're going to join this mission on that rock, on that confession. I'm going to build this church. Lastly, I think it's important to look at, if we're talking about Peter being the rock, why don't we ask Peter what he thinks this means? You read 1 Peter, I think he tells you. In 1 Peter, he says, Jesus is the cornerstone of this building. And we're just living stones that are built on the foundation of Jesus. That Jesus is the rock. I don't think anybody would argue this point. That it's all about Jesus. It is all about Jesus. Why is that important? It is important because it is not about you. The success of this mission does not depend on us. In other words, all we need to do is just be faithful and trust Him for the results. I just believe this. This is why it's very simple. We're just going to engage our community. We're going to figure out ways of friendship, service, and the gospel. How is that going to change the world? It's not. God's going to use our weakness, and He's going to do what God does, which is save people, reach people, change lives. We just be faithful, and we watch God build His church. It is all about Jesus. Our job is to proclaim Him. Some people won't listen. Some people will. But our job is to proclaim Him, not only with our words, but definitely with our words, but also with our lives, right? That is our mission. We show people a fresh glimpse of Jesus in the way that we live, and by opening our mouths and talking to them about the Jesus we know. And we do that first by offering friendship, no strings attached, relationships, serving them. Didn't Jesus, how many, it'd be an interesting study. How many people did Jesus serve or even heal that didn't follow Him afterwards? Lots. I can think of one time when He heals 10 blind people and only one was even thankful. So Jesus served people with no strings attached. And he told them the gospel every opportunity He had. That's what He did. It's all about Jesus. And the last note, while the worship team come back up, the last thing in your notes is this. The gospel is powerful. The gospel is powerful. The message is powerful. Look at what Jesus says. Jesus says, I might, if I get around to it, or if I can find enough faithful people, I might build my church. Did He say that? Or did He say, I will build my church? The gospel is powerful. Statistics will tell you that the church is shrinking. Statistics are wrong and Jesus is right, is what I'm telling you. The church is not shrinking. Jesus is still reaching people. Jesus is still changing lives. Mark Batterson, I read this book when I was floating around the lazy river a couple weeks ago on our vacation. It's called All In. Somebody gave it to me because we were going through this series by Mark Batterson. This was the take-home moment for me. He says this, Mark Batterson says, at some point in our lives, most of us stop living out of imagination, what could be, and start living out of memory. We get lulled to sleep. Why do we come in here with the Christian blahs? This is not that exciting, right? Yeah, going to church, right? Cool, it's hot. Father's Day. If you're not about anything exciting, why are you getting excited? You're just weird. Right? He goes, some of us, we just stop believing that Jesus is still in the business of reaching people and that he can reach people. One person told me one time that he thinks the problem in America is that we don't pray enough for people because we don't care about people. I don't believe that that's true. Maybe sometimes it is. But I believe this. I believe we don't pray and we don't go out there because we don't believe it's going to be effective. And I can prove it because let's say I can guarantee you that after church today, I would give you 15 minutes and every single person that you call and you just mention the name Jesus is going to get saved and have eternal consequences. How many phone calls are you going to make? I doubt any of you guys are going to waste that 15 minutes. Right? So it's not that you don't care, it's that you don't believe it's going to be effective. And Jesus is saying, in my timing, in my power, it is going to be effective. Don't stop. He says, the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Think about how profound that would have been when you're walking in and you're just a teenager and you're walking in nervously to this crazy place that you'd only heard rumors about and your mom said, never go there. And when you do, roll up the windows and lock the doors and don't stop. If you have to go to the bathroom, hold it. Right? And don't go there. And they're walking in here with Jesus, and He's like, look, here, on this rock, I'm building my church, and I'm using you guys. You'd be like, how are we going to do that? Because I am going to do it. I'm going to use you guys. And then He says, I'm giving you the keys. That's crazy. If one of you guys come to a parenting class that I'm doing and you give your 16-year-old keys to your Porsche, I'm going to tell you you're crazy. You're going to make them entitled. I'm going to have a lot of good reasoning. That's just human wisdom, but I think it's good wisdom. Right? That's crazy. The keys to the kingdom of God. He hands it over to us. He goes, I'm using you guys. Why? Because that's what I'm doing. Are you in? Are you guys in? He says. That's what I'm doing. We're doing this. You know how many? Do a head count. There's 12 of you. And I'm doing it. And you guys are fools. You're arguing about who's the best. I get it. But you're going to be somebody. Like, you're going to be a rock, Peter, someday. And I'm going to use you guys. And I'm going to take that unseeming, you think there's no way that we're ever going to influence that with the kingdom of God. We're not even allowed to go there. We're going there. We're transforming it for Jesus. He goes, here's the keys. You with me? And then Jesus goes, you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm all in. You guys are gonna watch. I'm gonna die to make the way to make that happen. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna rise from the dead so that you all know it's true. You remember you have these keys. You go out and build my kingdom. Peter's like, no, not you. No, Peter. You don't know what you're talking about right now. You're going back to earthly things. And you know what I just? Don't you know the gravity of what I just said and who you're with? We could do this. He goes, listen. You guys want out? Get out. You want to follow me? You're going where I went. You're going to places like this. And you're going to tell them a crazy message. That there's only one way. And they're gonna say, no, we want to pick our own way. And you're going to say, no, there's only one way. But it's good news. Because guess what? There's a way. That's the gospel. There's a way. Let's worship.